By mid this year, there was a silver of hope that the first 100 megawatts turbine of the 600 megawatts Karuma hydropower station at the edge of Kiriandongo and Oyam districts to the north would be added to the national grid, lighting backwaters across the country. It is a marvelous feat that both the Chinese contractor, Sinohydro, and the project owners, the Uganda Electricity Generation Company Limited, frantically looked forward to. Specifically, because the last 4 years have been strenuous over the discussions to fix major defects that beset the troubled 2 trillion power project from the early days of construction. On September 29th, engineers commenced the process for wet commissioning for the first turbine, filling its chambers with water, which process ran until October 16th. To their frustration, they discovered glitches at the tail race outflow tunnel, or TRT gate, the outlet for water from the turbine chamber. The rise in water levels in Lakes Victoria and Kyoga in 2020 and 2021 flooded downstream with sand and other sedimentary debris that accumulated at the still basin where the TRT gates open. In effect, the gates could not open. We found the dredging and sediment pumping ongoing in high gear when we visited the site this Wednesday. Initially, it was expected the dredging would take only 2 weeks, but it has taken 2 months from late October to November to now December. The TRT gates, which serve as the outflow for water from the turbine chambers, are located at the site of this still basin where it is pumped first to reduce velocity before it joins the Nile waters to flow downstream. More glitches were unraveled during the running of the turbine. Engineers discovered a mechanical fault with the ring gate, a primary safety feature that surrounds the turbine runner and shuts off water in case of an emergency. When the ring gate was opened, it was discovered that there was a synchronization error with one of the servo motors which control rotational motion. This meant that the entire wet commissioning process had to be halted. Another investigation had to be undertaken in all the turbines. It also meant that commissioning the dam by the end of this year is not possible.
When you add all those problems, then we said we will not rush at political commissioning. I would be the first person to rush for political commissioning, call the president, but I consider risks as a matter of priority. So 2023, we pray that we see the commissioning.
The commissioning process is not a straightforward activity in that you come, switch on, and you start generating power. Commissioning is all about checking the functionality of the different parts and systems that make up the power plant, be it drainage, dewatering systems, ventilation, air conditioning, cooling water, emergency lighting, communication, CCTV, SCADA, system control and data acquisition, and so on and so forth. You need to make sure then the various measurement, monitoring, the different sensors, be it for firefighting, detection, you have to make sure they are all working in an integrated manner and well synchronized.
This December, construction of the Karuma hydropower station entered the 9th year, joining the list of Uganda's inordinately delayed projects, notably topped by the 21.5-kilometer Kampala Northern Bypass, for which 2 phases from 2004 took almost 20 years to finish. Karuma Dam construction kicked off in August 2013, but started in earnest 4 months later as the tendering process for a contractor was rocked by corruption claims and investigations by anti-graft agencies. China International Water and Electric Corporation, which was evaluated best bidder for the Karuma tender, was short-circuited and the deal awarded to Sinohydro. To placate China International Water and Electric Corporation, which was threatening legal action over the flawed Karuma tender, the government awarded it the Isimba Dam deal in Kayunga district. However, the construction of the 2 dams that cost a combined $2 billion has been mired in controversy for the most part. Energy Minister Ruth Nankabira says there is good progress in fixing the defects, but there is no rush for commissioning.
We had actually planned for 2 units, and that is 200 megawatts. You know, one dam, Isimba, is 183. A whole dam generating 183. So to commission 200 megawatts, you must be ready. You must test the end user. You must be sure of that transmission infrastructure, that you will not have problems. So when my engineers tell me that even the 200 megawatts, we are likely not to bring both units at a go, I listen.
Before the mechanical glitches during the last month that affected switching on the first turbine, a row emerged between the government and the Chinese contractor during the last 4 years over fixing the major defects identified. Officials say the contractor wanted the project commissioned as early as 2018, when completion works were supposed to end, and work on the defects thereafter.
So when I came, I found the issue of snags. You know, the cabling, the the cracks, and all that. But I'm happy to note that the contractor really tried to work on these snags. The cabling, you could tell the difference, you know. Initially, they were just bundling, and you would wonder if one had an incident of fire, which cable to deal with. But they were all well aligned, and some other defects were being worked on.
The defects included major cracks in the dam section, which were blamed on the quality of water used in mixing concrete and the method the contractor used to transport the concrete. There were problems with concrete beneath both the spillways and spill basin wearing out as a result of the water pressure. This led to stoppage of works for 8 months in 2016 to establish and enforce corrective measures, which took almost a year to rectify. Albert Musoke Biaruhanga, the Uganda Electricity Generation Company Limited Karuma Project Dam Manager, told NTV that they opted for a methodology known as Epoxy grouting to fix cracks, basing on their width and depth, which was an alternative to breaking and rebuilding the defects.
At the time, it was mainly heat of hydration, which was causing thermal cracking in the concrete. We agreed on an epoxy grouting methodology to fix the problems with the concrete. We did the tests to check the efficacy of the remedial measures that were implemented, and the results were satisfactory.
Spending more time on the civil structure while fixing cracks, which took almost a year, posed more challenges.
What that meant, the manufacturing schedule was still running on the original project schedule. Yet, the construction works for the civil structures, which house the equipment, had a delay of a year. So we ended up in a scenario where equipment started being delivered from China and other places where the manufacturing plants are to site, yet it was not ready to be installed. And that causes problems with lack of adequate storage, the storage condition, and ultimately it can result into deterioration. You have issues of corrosion, of rust.
Asked about the remaining defects, this is how he responded.
Avoiding were mainly 3 things. One is to look at safety of the plant, because you have an underground plant with electrical components. You've seen the transformers, you've seen the generating units, you've seen where the plant is located. Assuming you had catastrophes like a flood, there can be very dire consequences encountered. Then number 2, you're looking at operability. And by operability, we are talking about the operation and maintenance phase. How easy is it to carry out preventive maintenance of the plant in the various sections? If you don't have ease of maintenance, then it means you will have lengthy shutdowns. If, assuming you have a piece of work that should last 1 hour, but to get access or to even troubleshoot and find out what is it that you need to fix in 1 hour is going to take a day or 2, then that is not an efficient way of carrying out O&M activities. Then the third consideration is, of course, preventing loss of generation revenue. Each time the plant is not running during the operational phase, you're losing revenue. and this is revenue that is critical towards meeting the loan repayment obligations. Once the plant starts running, you don't want to be shutting down to deal with problems or issues that could well be addressed during the construction phase.
Beginning of January, Unit 1 will come on board, and after a few days or like 1 month, Unit 2 will come on board. So it's going to be a phased decommissioning.
The COVID-19 pandemic, which struck in early 2020 and extended into 2021, crippled construction works at the time the government and the contractor clashed over electromechanical installations, especially cabling, whereby the contractor installed wires which flouted the design standards or specifications applicable. There were instances where the cables were bulging and were not labeled. The contractor had also installed plastic glands instead of stainless steel as specified, and some of the equipment gathered rust. A tour of the almost 30-floor storage project with a labyrinth of tunnels shows that the contractor has had to redo a lot of cable installations. The reports of defective works at both Karuma and Isimba Feast emerged in 2016, while the Ministry of Energy and the Uganda Electricity Generation Company Limited engaged in dogfights over the lucrative supervision of the projects. The fights sucked in several officials, including President Museveni, and exposed inaction on claims of shoddy works at the sites. Since 2016, independent engineering audits undertaken to ascertain the quality of the works on Karuma unraveled environmental, health and safety concerns for workers, quality control issues in the concrete mix designs, and alignments of some of the tunnels, among others. The reported multiple defects with the plant and investigations over the last 5 years by Ugandan experts illuminated concerns about the quality of works and structural integrity of the dam supposed to last 100 years. The ensuing discussions that sucked in Uganda Electricity Generation Company Limited, their parent Ministry of Energy, the Presidency, the Chinese Embassy in Kampala, and Sinohydro's parent company, Power China in Beijing, threatened to sour the good bilateral ties between Kampala and Beijing. Diplomatic sources told NTV that Chinese officials were not pleased with the conduct of Energy Ministry officials and recently the Prime Minister Robin Anabanja for circumventing protocol of going through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and directly reading a riot act for the Chinese ambassador to Uganda over issues at the dam.
Teamwork was enhanced here between the technical people and the political heads in the ministry, plus the ambassador, because it is the name of Chinese government that will be tarnished if a Chinese company supported by a Chinese government fails to perform. So we are working well with the ambassador and the team.
China's Exim Bank pulled 85% of $1.4 billion of the project financing following a March 2013 meeting between President Museveni and his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping, although the formal loan agreement was not finalized until mid-2015. The Ugandan government topped up 15% or $253 million. The engineering, procurement and construction tender provided for 2 components, a hydropower station and all transmission lines with their substations, 400 kilovolt line from Karuma to Kawanda, Wakiso district, 132 kilovolt line from Karuma to Lira, and the 400 kilovolt line from Karuma to Oluyo in Nwea district. Last year, the government had concrete engagements with Sinohydro and executives from Power China and looked at the list of critical issues or glitches basing on safety, operability, and revenue generation. Consequently, in March this year, Power China withdrew staff on the project and replaced them with a new team.
The cooperation between the project parties, the employer, the contractor, and the owner's engineer has improved tremendously. There's good cooperation. There's transparency, there's open communication, and we've managed to overcome most of the challenges that had dogged the project during that period of 2020-2021.
Meanwhile, Uganda Electricity Transmission Company Limited had completed works on all 4 power substations and transmission lines before the commissioning, but the ongoing vandalism of the pylons poses a threat to transmission.
It started by removing a few pieces from the tower, and so you would go and find the tower is literally unaddressed. So we had the team, and the team continued to putting back those angle towers. And the angle towers we make sure we color them with a different color from the ones that were there. And so of recent past, as recent as this year, we started seeing another trend of vandalism, where now entire tower is cut and falls down, and then within a space of about 3 hours, it is taken.
Michael Taremwa, the Uganda Electricity Transmission Company Limited acting managing director, told NTV they were ready to evacuate Karuma Power.
So as recent as August and early September of this year, we started seeing another trend where the 4, I will call them legs, the pieces would be removed from at least the 2 of the support legs, call them, and then they let the tower fall by itself. And so at that point, we believe that it crossed from being vandalism where the person is taking steel, and now this time is sabotaging.
While both Uganda Electricity Generation Company Limited and its parent, Ministry of Energy, are buoyant that construction of the project is nearing completion, with current works reported at 98%, they, however, cannot commit to specific timelines for commissioning of the power infrastructure. All said and done, the flooding incident in August this year on the Isimba Dam, after one of the radio gates malfunctioned, thrust the 2 power dams back into sharp focus and reopened discussions about Uganda Electricity Generation Company Limited and Ministry of Energy officials sleeping on the supervision job on projects for which the country borrowed colossal sums of money under some of the stringent conditions that placed the country under debt bondage. Only time will vindicate them.